fifth grade. Today in math, we did lesson 2.7, which is over mathematical properties. And properties are just different strategies and things that we can use when we're working with numbers to help make things a little bit easier. So today we're going to talk about 3 different properties or strategies that we can use when we're adding numbers to make our lives a little bit easier and help us do it more in our head instead of having to work every single thing out on paper. The first property that we talked about was the commutative property. And some examples of the commutative property show me that 3 plus 4 is equal to 4 plus 3. Or another example shows me that 6 plus 7 is equal to 7 plus 6. All they're doing is changing the order of those numbers. And that's exactly what the commutative property means. The commutative property tells me that I can change the order of numbers when I'm adding them. We can always change the order of numbers when we are adding them to make our life a little bit easier. The second property that we talked about was the associative property. I have 2 plus 3 plus 7 is the same as or equal to 2 plus 3 plus 7. Or there's another example here with 6s and 2s. But if we take a look at this, you will notice that the numbers stayed in the same order this time. We have 2, 3, 7, 2, 3, 7. However, something did change. We changed what numbers were grouped together in our parentheses. And that's okay. The associative property tells me that I can change my groupings. So when I look here, I like it grouped this way better because 3 plus 7, well, that's an easy 10, plus 2 more would be 12. It makes more sense for me to have it grouped like this. But if I did it this way, I would get 2 plus 3 is 5, and 5 plus 7 is also 12. I'll get the same answer. I just like it better grouped like this because it's an easy group of 10. So the associative property tells me that I can group my numbers however I want to and change them around. As long as I'm adding, I will still get the same answer. And third, we talked about the distributive property. This one is a little bit more tricky. In my example, I have 7 times 2 plus 6. And the distributive property tells me that I can distribute the outside number to each of the inside numbers. So I take my outside number 7 and I share it with the 2 and I get 7 times 2. Plus I share it with the 6 and I get 7 times 6. Or the same thing down here on my other example. I have 8 times 3 plus 9. If I want to use the distributive property, it tells me that I can take my outside number and share it with my inside numbers. So I can share 8 with 3 to get 8 times 3. And I can share 8 with 9 to get 8 times 9. These are just ways to help me with my multiplication as my numbers get bigger as we go into 5th grade math a little bit further in the year. That will be very helpful. Then we took a minute to look at some examples and try to show how we can use these properties with these different things. So let's try a few of these out together. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here, make it easier for you to see. Let's start with number 1. On number 1, we see that we're adding several numbers here, and we could just add them up and we would be just fine, but it would be quicker if we can find easy groups to make. So look down through those numbers. Could we make any of those into a group that would give us an easy number to work with? Like right here, I see 20 and 80. Well, 20 and 80 would be an easy group because I know 20 and 80 would be 100,000. So that's an easy group for me. And I'm going to go ahead and cross those out because I've combined those to make 100,000. Is there another easy group that you see there? I see 30 and 70. That would be another easy group. What would 30 plus 70 be? Another 100,000. And then I'm going to cross out the original numbers because we've already used them to make a new group. And then look, we only have this guy left, 49,000. So we have 100,000, 100,000, and 49,000. I can do that easily in my head. What would my answer be? 249,000. So see, making those other groups not only makes it quicker, but it makes it easier because I can do it in my head and I don't have to do a lot of carrying or borrowing or any of those types of things. It's just 249,000. We can also do this sometimes with fractions. If you look here, I have a 6, an 11, a 4, a 6, and a 4. I have lots of different bottom numbers. And it would take me a really long time to cross multiply all of those and then add them together. Instead, I could try to find groups of similar fractions. What fractions could we group together here to try to make our life a little bit easier? Oh, I see 3/4 and 1/4. I could definitely group those because they have the same bottom number. What is 3/4 plus 1/4? Hopefully you're thinking 4/4, which is the same as 1 whole. So those two fractions equal to 1 whole. Are there any other fractions that I can combine together there? Hopefully you see 1/6 and 5/6. Those both have the same bottom number, so I could combine those together as well. What is 1/6 plus 5/6? It is 6/6 or 1 whole again. Those two added together also equal 1 whole. Then I have one fraction left right there. So I can look at what I have now. I have 1 whole, 1 whole, and 5/11. What would my final answer be there if I add all of that together? Well, I would have 2 wholes and 5/11. So notice, finding those groups was a ton faster than having to do all of that cross multiplication and figure out how to get a common denominator and then go from there. So finding those groups can be very helpful. Number 3, we're going to practice using the distributive property. And you will notice they already have 2 groups. But these problems don't look very easy. So to make it a little bit easier, we're going to go backwards. We're going to take a number out and put it on the outside. So look in your 2 groups here. What number do you see that's the same in both groups? The 7. So we're going to take the 7 out. We're going to put him on the outside. And then whatever numbers are left, we're going to leave on the inside. So when I take my 7 out and move him to the outside, what numbers am I left with for my group on the inside? 25 and 75. Now this looks a lot easier to solve because first we do our parentheses. What is 25 plus 75? That's 100. And then I do 7 times 100 gives me 700. By doing the distributive property and pulling that 7 out, that was easy to see that that was 100 times 7. That's quick, 700. Otherwise, I would have had to do 7 times 25, 7 times 75, and then add those together, which would have taken me much longer to do. So these strategies just help me get a lot faster with doing my math if I can find those easy groupings. Let's look at number 4. I see they've made a group here, but we're also adding this number, and I think there's an easier group to make that would make this problem a lot faster for me. What 2 numbers would make more sense to group together there? Hopefully you're thinking the 600 and the 400. 6 and 4 is an easy group, so I'm going to rewrite this problem, except this time I'm going to make my group around 600 plus 400 because that's an easier group for me to solve in my head. Then I'm going to do inside my parentheses first. What is 600 plus 400? That's 1,000. And now I just have to think. I have 749 plus 1,000. What is 749 plus 1,000? 1,749. So by changing that group, I was able to do almost the entire problem in my head instead of having to stack those up and work them out, which would have taken much longer. Now, if I couldn't find the new group, could I just stack them up and work it out? Absolutely, you would get the exact same answer. We are just using these properties and strategies today to try to make it a little bit faster so that we don't have to work everything out if we can find some easy groups like that. All right, let's look at number 5. 968.73 plus 532.15 equals 532.15 plus n. What number would need to go in place of n to make this true? Hint, hint, there is no math involved here. You do not need to do a single bit of math. You just have to look with your eyeballs. N should equal 968.73. Because look on both sides of your equal sign. I have this same number on both sides. So all I need to do is take this number and put it there. They are just switching the order on the other side. They're using the commutative property. They just switched the order. So the missing number would be whatever was on the other side that is missing still. All right, 2 more down here to look at. It says, which property best describes each situation below? Ooh, here are 3 options. I'm going to highlight those for us. We have the commutative property, the associative property, or the distributive property. Those are the 3 that we talked about at the very beginning. So let's see which one of those matches the scenario that they tell us. Okay, so let's start with number 6. Miranda cannot add this very easily. So she regroups the problem as this. So she started with this. That wasn't very easy for her. So she changed her grouping around and grouped it as this. Which one of those properties that we talked about would match with what she did? She changed her groupings. Which one of these changes the groupings? Is it the commutative property, the associative property, or the distributive property? Changing her groupings. Which one did she use? Hopefully you are thinking the associative property. Remember, the associative property tells me that I can change my groups around to make it easier for me. So she used the associative property to help her easily solve that. All right, one more, number 7. Brady did not know the answer to 2 times 403. So he broke a factor into 2 addends and multiplied each addend by the other factor. Then he added the 2 products together. So this is what he turned it into. He started with 2 times 403, but he didn't know that. So instead, he broke it up into groups. 2 times 400 plus 2 times 3. Which one of those properties was he using to be able to do that? Is it the commutative property, the associative property, or the distributive property? Which one is he using if he couldn't do that, so he broke it up into 2 groups like that? Hopefully, you are thinking the distributive property. He took that 2 and he shared it with both numbers. He shared with 2 with 400 and he shared the 2 with the 3 to help him multiply that bigger number. So number 7, Brady used the distributive property. Today on your assignment, you are going to be using these 3 properties and strategies to help you solve some addition problems. And you might need to refer back to the notes to keep these properties straight. They're not really hard to understand, but they're hard to keep straight, like which one is commutative, which one's associative, which one's distributive. So make sure that you look back at those notes if you need to and see if you can use these properties to help you do your math a little bit more in your head instead of having to do everything out on paper. Good luck, you got it.